Imagine a lost world beyond the horizon, a grand realm shrouded in the veil of time, disturbed only by the echo of brave explorers' footsteps. Picture an ancient city carved into the rock and adorned with golden palaces, whose tall walls soared like mountainous stone ramparts. Feel the wind passing through the stone arches, carrying with it the distant song of a vanished civilization, yet immortal through the stories that have traveled across millennia. Welcome to the realm of the Akkadian civilization, a land of greatness and mystery, whose tumultuous fate has remained inscribed in humanity's memory as both a splendorous example and a cautionary tale for all who look to the past for vital lessons. This documentary invites you to step back into history, where legends and reality have fused like the golden thread of an ancient tapestry. You will feel the bustling crowds that once roamed the paved streets, hear echoes of an old tongue, behold temples that seem to reach the sky, and witness the destiny that turned the Akkadian civilization from a dominant power into a dormant relic, buried beneath the sands of time. Through these words, we shall revive together a world of unique beauty, and in the end, you will feel as though you have truly ventured into the mists of ages, following in the footsteps of those who dreamed, built, loved, and lost a mighty empire. Prepare, therefore, to be captivated by the story of a civilization that once ruled the forgotten lands of antiquity, leaving its mark on stone, in traditions and in legends. Close your eyes and let your mind resonate with the sound of ceremonial drums and the city's horns as we set out on the trail of the Akkadian civilization to uncover the hidden secrets beyond its grand gates. The story of the Akkadian civilization begins in a distant era, in a desert land dotted with oases and date palm groves, along the banks of a river that brought life and hope. Legends say that the first Akkadian rulers came down from the mountains, bearing sacred knowledge of astronomy, agriculture, and administration. Around a modest settlement that harbored the first seeds of a future empire, people gathered, drawn by rumors of the fertile land and the healing waters. The official founder of the Akkadian civilization is often cited in ancient chronicles as King Akkad, a visionary who gradually turned the flourishing village into a fortified city-state. Under his rule, the first monumental structures appeared, splendid palaces, temples dedicated to a diverse pantheon of gods and goddesses, and massive walls meant to protect the population from nomadic tribes. The local artisans' mastery of stone carving amazed even distant neighbors, paving the way for commercial alliances that would bring unexpected wealth. Once the capital, known as Akkad, had proven its greatness, inhabitants of other nearby settlements sought safety and stability in the shadow of its walls. In a short time, the political influence of the kingdom spread, and the borders expanded to encompass villages, towns, and vast territories. In the following centuries, under different dynasties, the Akkadian civilization experienced exponential growth, eventually recognized as a cultural and economic center unmatched in its era. Akkadian society was divided into a clearly defined hierarchical system. At the top of the pyramid stood the monarch, regarded not only as a political leader, but also as a divine protector of the people. Below him were nobles, high priests, military commanders, and scribes. The middle class consisted of craftsmen, merchants, and royal officials who enjoyed a certain privileged status in exchange for services to the crown. The lower class, the most numerous, included peasants, laborers, and small artisans. Although social differences were significant, each class played an essential role in supporting the economy and the stability of the state. Governance was based on a mixture of absolute royalty and priestly councils. The king, often revered as chosen by the gods, was advised by a group of priests and scribes. They recorded events, interpreted the divine will, and established the norms by which society functioned. Laws were considered sacred, and breaking them was not merely an offense against the state, but also blasphemy against the patron gods. As the Akkadian cities flourished, culture made an impressive leap. Art, poetry, and ritual dances developed under royal patronage, while temples were true centers of knowledge and faith. Vivid murals depicted scenes of daily life, myths, and military triumphs. Blacksmiths and goldsmiths created jewelry and decorative items in gold and silver, adorned with precious stones brought from distant lands. Architecture was another domain in which the Akkadian civilization excelled. From palaces with thick walls, featuring cool inner courtyards and hanging gardens, to colossal temples that defied the engineering limits of the time, the Akkadians demonstrated remarkable skill in the art of building. Advanced stoneworking techniques and a well-organized system of canals and aqueducts allowed the cities to develop harmoniously despite often harsh geographical conditions. In chronicles and orally transmitted tales, it is said that the origins of the Akkadian civilization are tied to an impressive founding myth. According to it, the sun god, named Rakstu, chose a mortal leader to carve a path through the desert darkness and found a citadel where divine light would be honored every day. It is told that, on a night of red crescent moon, this leader prayed to the stars and pledged eternal devotion to the celestial pantheon. In return, Rakstu offered him a golden staff. With the help of this staff, the king touched the barren land and transformed it into a cradle of fertility. Thus was born Akkad, the symbolic city of the Akkadian civilization, a gift from the gods to humankind. The Akkadian pantheon included numerous deities, each associated with aspects of nature and human life. Gods of rain and harvests, gods of war and death, gods of wisdom and healing. Grand ceremonies took place on fixed dates, set by precise astronomical observations, while priests, dressed in gilded vestments, officiated rituals accompanied by drums and bronze wind instruments. A famous story tells of the heroine Dakira, a warrior princess blessed by the gods with extraordinary abilities. It is said that she defeated monstrous creatures of the desert, protected caravans, and negotiated peace with nomadic tribes. For her bravery, she was transformed into a constellation which, to this day, still shines in the sky, guiding lost travelers. Fantastic creatures, such as winged chimeras, giant scorpions, and feathered serpents, were often depicted on the bas-reliefs of temples, representing the unleashed forces of nature that people tried to tame through prayers and sacrifices. These mythical figures imbued the daily life of the Akkadians with an epic backdrop, turning existence into a perpetual dance between the sacred and the profane. Akkadian mythology does not contain only triumphant tales, but also grim warnings. Some ancient texts, barely deciphered, speak of a great curse cast upon the city by a storm god, displeased by the arrogance of a king who sought to match his own power with the divine. According to these legends, This royal pride brought about natural disasters and internal conflicts, undermining the foundations of the empire. Although such mythological accounts may seem exaggerated, they nonetheless reflect the warning that no civilization, however great, is safe from its own mistakes. Strategically positioned at a crossroads of trade routes, the Akkadian civilization thrived thanks to extensive networks of exchange that crossed deserts, mountains, and seas. The cities of the empire were known as commercial hubs, where caravans loaded with spices, precious metals, fine fabrics, and rare stones stopped to trade. In the bustling markets of Akkad, the beat of drums and the cries of merchants mixed with the exotic aroma of spices brought from distant lands. Akkadian coins, engraved with sacred symbols and the ruler's effigy, circulated over great distances, facilitating trade and stabilizing the local economy. Moreover, the construction of paved roads and fortified way stations allowed merchants to travel safely and broaden their horizons. Thus, the empire ensured a steady supply of vital resources to support its growing population. One of the most notable advances of the Akkadians was the development of agriculture in seemingly hostile environments. The construction of irrigation canals and water retention systems made it possible to fully exploit the fertile land along the sacred river. Rich harvests of wheat, barley, grapevines, and date palms ensured that food would not run short, even in extended periods of drought. Akkadian craftsmen and scholars devised methods for measuring and mapping the land, allowing rigorous control of harvests and stockpiles. This systematic approach led to the development of granaries and silos, where supplies could be stored under optimal conditions. The surplus fueled trade and fed the Akkadians' ambition to conquer and integrate new territories, expanding both their influence and their resource network. Education in the Akkadian civilization was not limited to nobles or priests. Although advanced knowledge indeed remained the privilege of the elites, temple-based schools also admitted talented children of merchants or artisans. There they studied writing, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Akkadian innovators developed their own hieroglyphic writing system, used in monumental inscriptions and state archives, as well as a simplified alphabet that facilitated commercial and administrative exchange. Akkadian mathematics was surprisingly sophisticated for its time. Royal researchers drew up calculation tables for managing harvests, taxes, and payments, while architects employed complex formulas to design massive structures. Astronomy, seen as a bridge between heaven and earth, was practiced with a religious devotion. Planetary movements and lunar phases were studied not only to understand the will of the gods, but also to organize the civil and agricultural calendar. Primitive observatories, built atop the tallest temples, offered perfect vantage points for gazing upon the starry vault. Despite all its grandeur and apparent stability, the Akkadian civilization was not immune to time and the vicissitudes of history. Over the centuries, chronicles and modern research have proposed various theories to explain the disappearance or decline of this once dominant civilization. Below, we explore some of the most frequently mentioned hypotheses. The regions where the Akkadians flourished were prone to earthquakes, floods, and sandstorms. According to partially damaged records, at least 2 major cataclysms struck Akkad over the course of 1 century. A devastating earthquake that destroyed older palaces and temples, and a series of floods that compromised the irrigation network and decimated harvests. The inability of leaders to rebuild infrastructure quickly likely led to a massive emigration of the population to safer areas, leaving the major cities to become depopulated. As the empire expanded, the demand for resources grew exponentially. Deforestation for new settlements and for obtaining fuel caused erosion and dried up certain springs. The beasts of burden and large herds that provided food for the population and armies put enormous pressure on agricultural lands. What was once fertile soil gradually turned into an arid desert, and harvests declined dramatically. Furthermore, supplies of precious metals and quality stone became increasingly rare, affecting both the economy and the architectural ambitions of Akkadian cities. We must not forget the geopolitical context of the era. Powerful rivals arose at the empire's borders, and struggles for resources and supremacy were frequent. Nomadic tribes attracted by Akkadian riches attacked caravans and settlements on the kingdom's periphery. Additionally, some theories suggest that in the final stages, the Akkadian rulers became embroiled in succession disputes and palace intrigues, weakening internal unity. Weakened by conflicts and lacking a charismatic leader, the Akkadians likely yielded to the invasions of stronger neighbors, eventually becoming subjugated or culturally assimilated. Some sources emphasize a possible moral and spiritual decadence among the elites. Excessive luxury, corruption, and neglect of ancient values may have driven the Akkadians away from the gods' protection. Lacking the religious and cultural cohesion that once united them, people split into rival factions. Religious stories, as well as priests' warnings, point to a rift between the king and the priestly class, while social inequalities grew. This polarization may have accelerated the structural collapse of the civilization, leaving room for internal revolts and political chaos. Today, all that remains are the ruins of a grand dream and the stories that keep it alive. In the silent desert, among dunes dancing in the scorching wind, lie the buried foundations of stone and the fragments of finely crafted ceramics. Fallen arches, sculptures eroded by time, and monolithic blocks shattered under the weight of centuries remind us of a city once so certain of its own power that it dared to dream of eternity. Yet the legacy of the Akkadian civilization does not lie solely in the tangible ruins and the melancholy silence of abandoned walls. Its cultural influence, along with its innovations in architecture, commerce, and science, traveled through history, passed on by migrating peoples and caravans, by chronicles copied and reinterpreted by other civilizations. Their myths and legends, from gods and legendary heroes to fantastic creatures, continue to inspire artists, writers, and researchers who seek to understand and revive the spirit of this great lost empire. Perhaps the Akkadian civilization succumbed to its own ambitions, to human errors, or to the fury of nature. Perhaps it was a victim of the cyclical nature of history, reminding us that nothing endures forever. Yet the lesson it imparts is clear and moving. Each building, each invention, and each story are the result of a collective hope. In a world where everything is ephemeral, people's ideals and dreams can endure as long as they are shared and cherished. As we move away from its ruins and leave behind the shadows of the past, one lingering question remains: what other secrets still lie untouched beneath the sands? What treasures await discovery, ready to offer new perspectives on the life, hope, and downfall of this fascinating civilization? The answer may lie in geological layers yet unexcavated, in hidden libraries waiting to be rediscovered, or perhaps in the very stars the Akkadians so devoutly contemplated. Whether we ever learn all the truths or not, the Akkadian civilization remains a beacon guiding us through the darkness of the past, a call to understanding and reverence. In each grain of sand lies a story, and in each story, a possible future is born. Let therefore the echo of this civilization pass through your thoughts and imagination, carrying with it the fundamental lesson that even the greatest human creations can be consumed by time, yet their spirit will always endure in the souls and legends of those who follow them. Thus ends our journey through the lost empire of the Akkadian civilization. May this story remain alive in your hearts, inspiring you to look to the past with reverence and to step into the future with hope. Just as the desert dunes constantly shift but remain a defining feature of the wasteland, so does the Akkadian heritage transform, survive, and be reborn each time a new soul speaks its name. We thank you for joining us on this adventure through time and space. Let us all remember that history is not a buried museum, but an inexhaustible source of lessons and inspiration. Until the next story, let us keep alive the spirit of knowledge and exploration, just as our Akkadian forebears would have done.